we're going to do just the top tube on this particular video. We can do more, but I want to break them up into segments just so that people can see them, you know, as they need to be seen. So this is a third part in the series. We're just going to take apart the top tube and take that off, and then show you how that works. First thing you're going to want to do is pull the pin out here. Now, as you can see, sometimes this can be a little bit tough to get off. What you're going to want to do after you get this is use a little bit of hater sauce on this when you reassemble it. Okay, on this area in particular, this area here is where the O-ring, retention O-ring, inside the bolt, let me get the bolt out real quick. There is an O-ring that's been press fitted inside of this bolt that holds, and you want to listen for the snap here. Oh, there we go. It holds it in that position. That's the correct depth and where you want the pin to be. But when you first get it, ooh, that thing wants to hold on. So either sit around and kind of work this thing in, you know, or add a little bit, both, or add a little bit of hater sauce, a little bit of lubrication there. Okay, so that's the bolt and the pin, and we'll set that aside. Gotta dry my hands off here. My surface is already getting completely dirty. All right. Torx T10 mentioned in the first video. Wrench, again, yours came with one that looks like an Allen key. This is just one that I've got for teching. And I've got a slot blocker on here. That's to keep paint out of the slot in the hammer area. Not necessary. I bought it off of M. Carter Brown from a guy named Stormin Norman, all one word. You can look for those. He sells in the dealer section. I'm not sure by the time you're watching this video if he still be selling them, but hopefully he is. Again, not super necessary. They come with longer screws. The stock CCM and let me take this off and I'll show you what that will look like. The stock CCM just has the back block. Again, you can run that all your whole life and be very, very happy. So there's going to be 2 screws on a stock CCM that are just on the back of this back block right here. But again, you just take those 2 screws out and then take this back block off. Now, sometimes that back block can be tough to get off, especially when it's new. It fits perfectly. Rod makes sure that it fits perfectly. You want it to fit perfectly because it has to be the correct length here on both rods. If you have that canted slightly, the bolt gets canted in here, and all of a sudden your pump stroke is crap. So it might be a little tight at first. I've been playing with mine for years, so it's pretty loose. But give this a couple of taps and with the pump, and it should just come right off. Mine, I've taken it off so many times that it comes off. This then allows you to slide the pump and the double arms right out. You're going to want to wipe these down. I polish these as well, but I polish them only in the back. And you can see this part is much more shiny than this part because that's the part that goes through the 2 holes on the T2. So there is some rubbing in there. So the more polished that is, the smoother the pump stroke is going to be. And on a CCM, if you're going to own one, you want it to be as smooth as possible because that's what it's made to do. Now, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't take these off. These are set on a jig at the perfect distance at the factory. Don't do it. Unless you're going to have anodizing, then you might still have to send that off to Rod. If you have to do some serious cleaning, you can take the 2 screws off here. And look again. Again with the ball ends. And I know I keep on stressing that, but it just makes life so much easier. Those 2 screws come out. And again, it'd have to be really filthy for you to want to do this, but that's what it looks like apart. So these should not come apart. They're internally threaded here, and so they just thread in. Rod sets them in a jig, make sure they're at the right distance, and then set them. And then he red Loctites them, you know, so don't mess with it. I'll set that aside. Back to this. This is your top tube. I love that they changed how the spider tabs work now. The old one was just spider tabs. You had to fight your Allen key in there and stuff. Now you can just undo it. You see, I just leave mine finger tight. A lot of guys red Loctite these. I leave it finger tight simply because if my hopper is on, let me show you how this kind of works. If my hopper is on, and I go into a bunker hard or overslide, which I do because I'm old and clumsy and stuff, and I hit my thing and it spins this, I would way rather have a little give that I can then correct on the field than snap off my feed neck. That's just me. You can be you, I can be me, and we'll all be happy. Do what you want to do. The next thing you're going to need here, though, is a 5/64th ball end. to take these two off. This is not necessary to even mess with this on your average everyday cleaning, but in the name of a full breakdown, you take these two threads down, or two screws out here. That comes right off. Wipe that down real quick. Now, hopefully I can get this in the picture real well. If you take a look in there, there's your ball detent. Make sure that that detent is coming into the breech a good distance. You want it to be fairly new, because when the ball drops in, you want it to hold here before the bolt seats it in the barrel. It's breech dropping right now, and then you will push it into the barrel. If you have properly sized barrel to the paint, it'll hold there too, but you don't want it to double feed. Some of you guys are running rotors out there. Don't ask me why. I don't know why you'd want to run a heavy, feeder on a whole loader on a gun like that, but your prerogative, you do what you want to do. That has to be good to make sure you're not forcing paint past, or you'll get double feeds. Rotors are really good hoppers, don't get me wrong, but I use a $5 hopper versus a hopper that costs more than $100. Call me cheap, I don't mind. That comes off, and you can see how dirty that is. That's not stupid to take that off and out again. That's got a little paint underneath it, splatter. I was getting shot at through some bushes this last weekend, so it doesn't surprise me that I've got a little paint in there. Again, inspect your ball detent. Make sure that looks good. It's a Spider or a Bob Long, Timmy detent. Replace as needed. Chipley's got them. You'll have two screws. Again, these are Torx screws as well that come stock. Some people replace them with Allen key. That's whatever, your prerogative. Those go aside. Wipe down the top breech, and then run a squeegee through here to make sure that that's clean. So, and that's your top tube disassembled. Wipe down this here, and you can start reassembly at this point. And I'll go ahead and reassemble this just right now just to show you how it works. But when you're reassembling this, check out this little divot here. That is where your detent sits before you start reassembly of putting the top tube back on. Okay? The oblong hole here is where the detent has to go. There we go. When putting that back together. So you want it to look like that. This can be a little bit tricky as well. You kind of, again, want more than two hands. But what you're going to end up doing is putting your Torx screw on here. I turn the whole thing upside down, holding it together with my thumb. I turn the whole thing upside down and line up and screw in that Torx screw. Okay? So all I'm doing, if you were somehow to look from below, is just tighten that down. Again, finger tight. These are, again, steel. You're screwing them into aluminum. Don't go crazy. Don't go crazy. If you want to use a little bit of blue Loctite because you don't want to take apart that and you don't want this to rattle loose, that's not stupid either. The next one then can be put in from the back. Let's try that again. Can be put in from the back, take two, and set in its place. Then this Chipley has this access hole here that allows you to tighten that down. And I was cross-threading that slightly, so I want to check it. There we go. With your Torx wrench. Just snug. It's set. Not going to go anywhere. However, throughout the day, given that a test to make sure that those two tubes are held together, if you don't use Loctite, not stupid. Always good to test. So that's the top tube back on. Okay. Here again, we're putting the feed neck back on. This is just the feed neck adapter. It is a Spider tabbed design. Cool change that Chipley did. These used to be, back when there was the SS25s and Series 5s, they used to be angel threaded. And old angel threads were really fine and known to strip out. These two screws, although they're not the prettiest, they do allow you to not only change applications to a stock class design, which would be, again, the two screws, but also it's just very robust. You're just not going to break one of those, or at least I haven't. Screw that on, finger tighten it, and then I just undo my quick disconnect, line that up, boom, back together like that. So we got it at that point right now. We need to put the pump handle, which is made of Delrin, ribbed for your pleasure. Sweet CCM logo on the front there. Love how Chipley, you know, they throw those little touches in, and I think that's just classy. But that's me. Tighten that down. Don't over tighten. You're tightening now into Delrin, so it's even weaker than aluminum. I say that, I'm not sure that, you know, if that's absolutely true, but I would, you know, I believe that to be true, and I've anecdotally found that to be true. So, but I've never tested the Rockwell hardness of Delrin, so I might be wrong. Right now, someone is typing on Facebook, correcting me. I don't mind. Line this up. What you're going to want to do is, before you put that pump back on, this is the standard pump guide rod. There's only one on the T2. That is a 3/16 hole in the end if you wanted to take that off. I polish this. I'll talk about this in the next video. I polish this again because that's what this is riding on primarily. And if that's smooth, I know the gun is going to be smooth. Okay? So that's what I do. Is polish that up, polish these up. Then the back block goes on. Now the back block has to be even. And this will take you a little trial and error when you're first doing this, okay? This has to be even when you tighten this down. Now, again, I use a slot blocker, not necessary, but I use one. What can happen at times if you get paint, dirt, crud, whatever, in that bottom tube, while you're playing, is that, this again, you almost need more than two hands, is that the paint or crud will slow the hammer down as you pull the trigger and cause the marker to only go 250 feet per second. And dude, it will do it forever. You'll want to be adjusting the spring pressure, the pressure into the gun, the tension, all this other stuff, and it's 250, 250, 250. If you're getting 250 forever, I call it the 250 problem. If you're getting 250 forever, take apart this whole thing, take apart the bottom tube, which will be the next video, and clean that hammer. It's 99.9% of the time, in fact I haven't even heard of a case where it's not, that's the case. Reset everything and go back. Now notice what I'm doing here. I'm slowly tightening down these two screws a little at a time. You want this to be equal pressure. You don't want it to cant this back block, which again will cant the bolt and cause the gun to pump a lot harder than it should. Now what I do is I give it a test, and I want to make sure everything's moving smoothly, yet these are tight. Okay? So I'm giving them a little bit tight and a little bit, test it. And that feels really good. The gun is very loose. If you're getting it to that, once you tighten it back down, it's like, where'd all my CCM goodness go? Where'd all the smoothness go? Loosen those two screws back up and tighten them slightly. It takes a little bit of trickiness to get it, and you can even blue Loctite those in to make sure that they're set once you're done. Now I put the bolt in to test that. Let me take that bolt back out and throw the pin. Absolutely necessary. And this goes back in. Now you notice how shiny this is. This is shiny just from Triflow. Okay, this is the second bolt I've had in this gun, so this bolt is brand new. Just because the first one was, I got one of the early ones that didn't have the C on it. Wanted the cool circle C. So I got that on there. Anyway, that just goes in here. But you can misalign this. Make sure it fully seats. Okay? And goes in and is grabbing that hammer when it's cocking. Make sure it fully seats, make sure it's not kicked sideways or you can't pump the gun. Okay? So that's the top tube reassembled. And I'll take that top tube back off for the next video and we'll go right into the bottom tube and get working on that. See you then.